Hi, it's Liz with Big Tex Worms, and today I'm going to do a little review of the Worm Factory worm bin. I've had this bin in operation for over 5 years. I use it for my demonstration bin because it's a really good way to show people how worm composting works and every stage of composting that the worms are doing. So I do like it for that purpose. I don't use the Worm Factory bin as my primary worm bin, of course. I have much larger bins that I use for composting. The advantage of a Worm Factory worm bin, the main advantage to me, is that it's hands-free. You can feed without touching the worms. You can harvest without touching a whole lot of worms. So for a woman, this is a good choice because it's pretty low maintenance. The biggest disadvantage of the Worm Factory bin, well, there's two big disadvantages. Number one, it's expensive. You know, $80 to $100 for a worm bin to me is ridiculous. But because you can just make one out of a tote like that one over there for $5. But the second disadvantage is that the worms tend to stay small. They tell you in the manufacturers say in their pamphlet that it will hold, like, I think they say 8 to 10 pounds of worms or something crazy like that. But I found that with my 3 trays running fully operational, the most worms I can have in those 3 trays are about 2 pounds of worms. And I've been doing worm composting for almost 10 years, so I know what I'm doing. You know, they may argue, oh, she's not doing it right or whatever. I know what I'm doing, and I can't get more than 2 pounds of worms in there because, you know, they self-regulate, and I just think that's not enough space for the worms, and the worms tend to stay really small in this bin, and they don't breed a whole lot because they run out of space. So anyway, that's the biggest disadvantage. But I'm going to just run you through how a Worm Factory works really quick, top to bottom. I just started my top tray here. So there's not a whole lot going on in that tray yet because I just put it in the other day. So I'm going to take this top tray off. As you can see, the Worm Factory bin has holes in the bottom of each tray, and that's so the worms can migrate up as they finish the tray underneath. So this tray down here is pretty much, I'm done feeding in this tray, or finished feeding in this tray. It's just got some, you know, paper shreds and a little bit of food. I'll just show you. And then the worms are over here. Lift it up so you can kind of see there. Got worms in here. Think about when you use a lot of paper shreds, you do need to mix up the stuff in your bin quite frequently because it tends to get really compacted. Okay, so now that tray just needs a few more weeks for the worms to work their way through it. And then my bottom tray. Another thing is these get pretty heavy. This tray right here, it's, you know, you can see from the side, it's about halfway full, and it weighs a good 10 or 15 pounds. And then this bottom tray is pretty much finished. So let me show you something, okay? In the brochure, they say that when the castings are complete, which these are completely, these castings are done. They are ready. They look like coffee grounds or beautiful castings, okay? So this whole tray is nothing but castings. So according to the Worm Factory brochure, once you make it to the point where it's all worm castings, the worms are gonna migrate up to the next tray. It doesn't happen. The worms stay in the castings and the poop in the bottom. So you still end up having to pick worms out of the very bottom tray. So you still have to harvest your worms. So they don't all leave. In fact, I would say most of them stay. So what I do to harvest the worms or get them out of the top tray is I switch this bottom tray. I'm going to do it right now. And it's pretty heavy, so give me a second. I take this bottom tray, and wait, before I move on, look, the drip tray in my opinion should never have water in it. If you have water in your drip tray, that means you're overfeeding. So the drip tray, for my drip tray, it always just has castings in it. So I'm going to move all these castings over here. I'm not going to take the time to do it all right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bottom tray, set it over to the side, and then I'm going to put my next tray this just that partially composted stuff in the next tray position. And then I'm going to put what was my top tray in the middle position. And then I'm going to put this finished tray here in the top position. I can get it to go in. I'm trying to do all this one-handed with the camera in my hand. Okay, sorry about that. The camera was kind of moving around. I hope I don't make y'all dizzy. Okay, and then what I do is I just leave this tray with the lid off for a couple days. And have the light on overhead, and about 2 or 3 times a day I come in and I agitate the whole bin, and the worms are going to go down when I do this. They're going to go down, and then once a couple days has passed, it also helps to dry out the castings just a little bit, because a lot of times they're pretty wet. And then after a couple days, when there's no worms left in there, then I can store my castings. So I hope this little video explains to you how the worm factory operates. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me on my website, bigtexworms.com. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks. Bye.